Let's go above the clouds with Project Vulcan. The beloved Mr. Spock from the science fiction series Star Trek was a Vulcan. The Vulcans used to be like humans, but their ego and belligerent emotions almost destroyed their society until they embraced logic as a way of life in order to save their civilization. Sound a little familiar? We're in a cyber war right now, both a civil and world war. The biggest problem at the moment is social media algorithms and propaganda dividing and distracting us. It's not clear who our enemies are. It's all hands on deck, and we cannot afford to beat around the bush. Half the U.S. seems to treat social media and politics as if it were a wrestling match. The other half being interested in having logical conversations, which is really hard to do on existing social media networks because of the emphasis on hate and division instead of logical engagement. Thus, we need to build, extend, or support newer social networks designed for logical discourse. Yes, it will be hard to get engagement, but much easier if we start small and focus on those who are already trying to engage on specific issues. And we can use this to extend into a more public sphere. As far as the wrestling match is concerned, we have already clearly seen that trying to engage is a waste of time. We should mostly ignore them for now, other than monitoring what they're doing and saying. One of the first things that one must do in any war is to establish secure communications. But as you can clearly see, all of the most prominent social media apps have been compromised. Thus, we need to create new networks in scale, and we need to do it now. It's not feasible to change these existing networks. The wrestling match not only completely dominates the social media sphere, it also controls as much as 3/4 of the news market. Fox Entertainment, viewership rose over 30% in 2024 and even higher in the 25 to 54-year-old demographic. What's the worst thing that can happen? The collapse of democracy. And it might start small and then build. The wrestling match dominates the media and is growing fast. What do we logical Vulcans have? In the past, before computing and networking technology and cable proliferation, we had a hierarchy which, despite its flaws, and there are many, kept out crazy ideas and kept things more or less stable. We had the news media as a fact checker, gatekeeper, and watchdog. And we had more closed primaries. But this also kept the 1% in power. And now the pendulum has swung the other way, and we have chaos as the filters and controls are gone. We have been wired up and short-circuited. AI and deep fakes will make it worse. A totally new reality and new power structures are upon us. What can we do about it? The core idea behind Project Vulcan is to add another dimension to social media apps. Currently, the wrestling match dominates. Let's add logical discourse, where the audience is engaged in logic, initially targeted for very focused issues. It will initially require manual moderation, but we can increasingly use AI to assist once it has been vetted. The current social media apps fall mostly on the left side of the spectrum, with a few embracing logic, but falling more in the middle. Blue Sky, although built to be an open platform, thus reducing the chances it gets taken over by the usual cast of unscrupulous characters, is still structured similar to X. The proposal is to have Project Vulcan focused on logical discourse. But we can actually make it fun, and probably need to. For example, we can choose fun topics just to lighten the mood. People are always curious about things. We can even have contests on all kinds of topics. But we still need the wrestling match, despite the dangers of propaganda. These apps are here to stay. We need presence there, and they aren't changing anytime soon. But we do need to ensure free speech, emergence of new ideas, and so on. This will hopefully allow us to create a balance between the two sides of the spectrum. Here's an example. First, you post a question like, should trans women be allowed to compete in women's sports? To some, this is a simple yes/no question, but to many, it's not that simple. For example, does it depend on the kind of sport? And if so, should they be able to compete in the following? And then we list the options. And for each, people vote on whether they agree on a scale of 1 to 100. And people can add comments with their arguments, evidence, and so on. But some might think it's a simple yes/no question, and they can respond yes or no. Or, as shown in gray, they didn't answer because they answered the previous question. If somebody wants to add a new response and get people to comment or vote on it, they can do so. This is where moderation and eventually AI come in to organize the responses. Like, for example, some of them may be very similar. This is how many of the responses would be populated to begin with. This tree structure is similar to comment threads and Reddit, but is more structured. It's complicated, but it looks like we have no choice. We must try. Hopefully, it will catch on for those who don't treat politics like it's a wrestling match. But at the very minimum, we can use this for the minority of us who have the luxury of the time available to engage in ensuring our democracy is ready for the future.
Can't we get back to being all together? Mend the bonds that severed. So I long for good old America, brothers and sisters and liberty. Take me